All right, folks, if you're still working on this, no worries. My ringer just went out for 2 minutes. So open the floor for anybody to contribute. And actually, I'll just use what Shayla put in the group chat real quick here to kind of start our discussion here. She asked the question, but it's to kind of bring us into this topic here of what was the point about the vice presidents and how they don't do anything. It seems to be like an attack on ethos, right? So in this case, we can look at attack on ethos, vice presidents. And it seems that of 33 people in this company here, none of them have good intentions for the company here. So the collective ethos of Teldar Papers kind of sucks altogether here. And that's a good example you can look at here where he's attacking the ethos constantly of other people to make himself look better. So at this point, I've opened the chat to allow you to press space to, what do you call it, contribute. I see Andrew with a hand up. Go ahead, Andrew.
He talks about like the Carnegies and like these older civil companies that like established with their own money, right? So like Andrew Carnegie had his own money at stake, but like the management of these companies don't have like anything at stake. So it's like greed establishes the fact that you actually have to fight and defend this company, because if you don't, the company will tank, and so will your like value or your like net worth, right? Right. And then he uses this to compare to like the vice presidents, right? Who would like, they don't really care because if the company tanks, they receive a nice multi-million-dollar severance package before they leave, you know?
Absolutely. So it's kind of related to also that very beginning where Shayla talked about like the vice presidents. Further, earlier in his speech, he talks about the Carnegies and all these little millionaires who made their establishment because they were greedy and that they made their own investments here. So he makes another attack on ethos in this regards here. Mohammed, I see the hand. Go ahead.
He also brings up logos when he talks about the percentage rates on how the management altogether owns less than 1% while he's a major shareholder.
Yep. And so this also ties into Andrew's point as well, because along with the ethos attack that he makes, he also kind of backs up with facts where it's kind of like, hey, look, you want to look at numbers? These guys don't even own a massive, I singularly own more of this company than these guys here. RJ, go ahead.
So when towards the end, when he says malfunctioning corporation called the USA, I believe it's a metaphor in which it uses the term of corporation to describe the USA.
Absolutely.
Which alludes to the aligns with the jargon of corporations and economy.
So in this case, his metaphor of doing that comparison is kind of like both the US and Teldar are not run properly, basically.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I got a couple.
Parallelism?
I'm sorry. Parallelism is more of a writing structure thing. So in this case, not. I'll put it down real quick though, just kind of like as a note. So for parallelism, it's the idea where sentences are in similar fashion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A few people put some things in the chat, so I'll get those real quick before going next to Ivy and then Andre and then Brandon. So, Hugh mentioned that there was a lot of logos that was used, and absolutely, right? This guy knows his research and everything here. So it's kind of like a plus next to, I believe this is Muhammad's here in terms of the logos that is constantly being listed here. Tina mentioned that there's a comparison between greed in America, and he does like both appraising and criticizing of it. So in this case, comparing greed in context of America and corporations, kind of like how it's needed in both contexts here. Zoran mentioned listing, which I'll ask him in a second in terms of, oops, sorry, not his name, listing. I ask him what he means by that in a second here. Roger mentions attacking them instead of argument. Yeah, there's a lot of like ad hominem, right? So attacking the CEOs / vices, we call that ad hominem. So it's the idea of like attacking the character rather than maybe making an argument. And then Nathan mentions invective, which calls out the management. Yep, absolutely, just like what Roger said. It's another form of invective here. Ivy, go ahead.
He uses a lot of like periodic sentences and ascendantin, like greed for life, for money, for love, and for knowledge. And this basically puts a lot of emphasis on like the benefits of greed, and like you said, like redefines what greed really means, and yeah, just
Yep.
really emphasizing it.
So what Ivy notices here is not on the content level, but on the structural level, right? So Ace and Denton, and I know it's like red marked over here, but oh, is that how it's spelled? Wow, okay. But anyways, what Ivy notices is more of the structural level of the writing itself rather than the content, right? And putting those two together is kind of a plus in terms of sophistication, where you can look at both why is he doing it in the way it looks, but also the way that of the information it contains. Jaren mentions ad hominem. Is it a logical fallacy? Yes, it is a logical fallacy, but if he has enough like voice or character, then it actually might work then. You know what I mean? Because people might overlook the fallacy. Andre, go ahead.
So what I said is that throughout the reading, there's a lot of M dashes as a rhetorical device. So the reason why is because at the end of the day, it's a speech, right? And the reason why he includes these pauses is because doing so like increases his confidence and like shows that like he's well collected, which not only builds his ethos, but because his argument is largely structured on ethos, then it just strengthens his overall argument because it shows that he has ethos rather than the other people.
Absolutely. For a person to be rationally calm and collected, it shows that he's unlike the guy who called him out, Cromwell, right? Where he's like, you're out of line, but he's kind of like, look, America's failing, and you all know why. It's because of this guy here. So in this case, you're absolutely right. M dashes create those pauses that show confidence or of certainty here. Brandon, go ahead.
Mr. Lin?
Oh, no, go ahead.
So you also said that he uses invective, but I can't really see it because I thought invective was more of like an angry attack more than this sort of like a tirade rather than like, I don't know what's demonstrated here.
That's a good point. So in this case, even though maybe it's more of a subtle level, right? It's not explicit, where he's not using a bunch of curse words or he's not attacking their character perhaps in a way that is like just throwing mud at them, but he definitely implies a lot in terms of their incompetence and so forth, especially through like the metaphor he makes with like America and corporations and so forth. Brandon, go ahead. Oops. Oh, Andrew Yang.
I feel like he concedes, like he establishes his ethos as like a liberator, because he says he's not a destroyer of the companies. And what is it, by using greed to say how is like a better word, like instead of a negative connotation, it becomes positive. He applies it to the malfunctioning corporation of USA, and like ironically saying that this is their driving motive to like, sustain in a capitalist system.
Did you say concession in the beginning of that?
Yeah, because like he's not trying to like destroy these like higher ups or like these bourgeoisie, and he's trying to like become the liberator of these like companies.
Careful with that, because concession's more about like seeing the other side's point of view rather than redefining. So I wonder if it's not concession necessarily, but he's redefining the connotation of it.
Yeah.
And I know I got another one here. Andrew Yang, stop. You're next. All right. Kimberly, go ahead. Kimberly, are you there? Or we just simply can't hear you. All right. Well, as we're waiting for Kimberly to throw her comment out, got a few more in the group chat where Harsillic mentions attempts to warp logos of Cromwell to his advantage after making a stance going back to ad hominem. Well, in my book, you either do it right or get eliminated. So yeah, it's another one that those more implicit attacks on him where he's suggesting that Cromwell is not doing it right and he deserves to be eliminated. Oh, was that Kimberly?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I accidentally muted myself. So I noticed he used a lot of polite tone, so that when he throws out invectives and ad hominem to the stockholders, it would still make the audience would still see him as like gentlemanlike and in the right, especially when like he makes Mr. Cromwell so angry that he just like yells at him, which makes his reputation as a gentleman even better. So that it would seem like as if he was in the right the whole time, and that whatever he say doesn't really matter. It's not gonna make him look any bad at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Tone does a lot with that. And even though it's a movie scene that we can see the tone being done and so forth, it never really shows with like exclamation marks or whatever that he is shouting and outrageous and all that there, right? He's definitely a very calm and collected person. Got another type comment over here where it says, tone standpoint for the invective part that instead it creates an ethos effect. Yeah, the tone definitely has the sort of like, it's a tension, right? It's a balance where he does make like these louder moments where he declares something, but otherwise the invective part is even part of his ethos where you know that this is a person who's like frustrated or angry or just disappointed with the entire system. In his invective here, absolutely. I don't know if that's another hand, Ivy. Go ahead, if that's it, if that is. I know,
Oh,
Jenny.
no. I forgot to lower it.
No, it's okay. And Jenny, I know the text is super small right now. We'll divide this in 2 slides when I release it via the Google Drive. But otherwise, this is pretty much a very good list of rhetorical analysis on a piece that is roughly about maybe 800 words, right? So what you guys just did and all these responses here are really good examples of rhetorical analysis that you want to do for the AP exam. Sorry, I missed one more. Zoran, you had listing. Do you care to clarify listing real quick?
So like at the end, the third to last line, he like uses em dashes, and within those em dashes, I guess the em dash like emphasis or like replacement of parentheses, and he like uses ascendenton to like list what greed is for and how like it corrupts mankind, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not even just making greed sound better, but it's more so that he's trying to emphasize the purposes of greed. It's not just my feeling regarding it, it's what greed actually does for this country altogether. So in that case, that's an example of listing that you could also put into your essay altogether. So again, what you've all done here and whatever you came up with in regards to this or things that relates to this as an answer is basically rhetorical analysis. And with that in mind, I want you to take this particular ability and now format it into an essay structure. So we're going to use another piece of reading here to kind of like get an idea of how to do that. We're going to look at an editorial very much like we did before we ended with the school year, basically. So